Midwestern Geek in Cali, filming episode 64 here at 42 Tardis Way in lovely Temecula, California. Summer's winter home. And I am on the Windows machine today because my video recording software on the Linux box is acting up. So this is a little bit in my history of web poetry series. I've done several videos before on the history of web poetry on a different channel. I don't know how many of you know about this, but I've been a poet online for probably 20 years. And I've seen a lot of changes over the years. I tend to do poetry on general aspects of life. Um, Occasionally a little sci-fi poetry. And there's people think poetry and they think romance and romantic stuff and flowery language. Oh, no, 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 no. No, the entire universe can fit inside the lines of a poem, and that's a quote from myself. So you can run into poetry on all kinds of different subjects, as you may have seen in a couple of my prior episodes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about something that has to do with the history of web poetry and some changes that are coming up. I've been writing on a board called Poetic Constellations for a long time, probably since 2004, maybe even 2002. No, I'd say '04, right around there. I've been on other boards since about 2002, but Poetic Constellations, I want to give it 2004. And it was originally hosted by a forum operator called easyboards.com. And the graphics were very customized. It had a very kind of cosmic background and image theme to the whole site. Easy Boards at some point got taken over by Yuku.com, Y-U-K-U, and they kept the same look and customizations of the forum. I didn't change the graphics at all. And then about a year and a half ago, I want to say, Yuku.com got taken over by Tapatalk.com. And I'd seen other forums that had been converted to the tapatalk.com format. And basically when Tapatalk switches a forum over to their format, they completely wipe all the graphic customizations of the forum. Anything that was the original look and feel of the forum is just gone. All the graphics are out of there. It's kind of a sterile white and fuchsia color scheme. Almost reminds me of T-Mobile a little bit, although the primary color with Tapatalk is white. And all the image and graphics that you had on the old forum are just gone, lost. Yeah, I mean, it's not preserved anywhere. So when I saw that was coming and what happened to the defunct forum that had been taken over by Tapatalk and converted to their format, I knew what was going to happen to Poetic Constellations. So I happened to save some of the graphics from the Poetic Constellations board because I knew it was coming, and I knew that the original creator of that board kind of bailed. I mean, things were happening in her life, and it was just too much for her to keep up running. And the fellow that had been trying valiantly to keep it going was just not technically savvy enough to be able to handle everything that that Tapatalk had done to the forum, and he was trying to run it alone. I couldn't really step in and help because I've had a lot of big changes in my life over the last 3 years. Actually, maybe 4. And it's just not been possible. I mean, I've barely been able to get in there 3 or 4 or 5 times a year and actually write and respond to poetry because it's just been that busy. And so luckily I saved some of the main graphics, including the main background for the place. And now another writer at the forum has created a version of Poetic Constellations over on proboards.com, which allows for much easier graphic customization and has more of a feel and look like the old Poetic Constellations, at least once all the video graphic customization is done. So here we go. I just shared some of the graphics that were lost with her, so she's going to be updating the look of the theme for the new Poetic Constellations forum. Now, what's kind of sad is there's probably thousands of poems on that old Tapatalk board that are just going to sit there collecting dust. That's just way too much to move manually, and there's no automated way to do it. It's impossible. So, you know, we may be able to refer back to that, or maybe try and go pick on our own, but I don't know if it's really quite worth all the time and effort to do that. It would be a massive project, and a lot of the folks just aren't even going to know where to begin trying to deal with that. So I think we'll probably use it as an archive more than anything else. So on that note, I am going to bring up one of the poems that this inspired for me, and maybe give it a read here. Hang on a sec. I'm going to need to get into the place that I posted it. I actually have my own poetry blog that's just for that. I have to think a second because the short name is not how you pull it up on the web. All right, here we go. Squeezing time out of a Clockwork Lemon. I wrote this late at night last night, right before going to bed. I live in a tight little universe of words. My grip on moments of writing impelled, compressed by the numerology, soulless, beeping numbers of the no longer ticking clocks that wind up being anachronism. I own 1 or 5 of those by choice. If time were an orange, Ray Bradbury could rejoice, cut it in ever smaller wedges, knowing it was sweet. Instead, time is a lemon, my friends, fertilized in the bowels of corporate capitalism, sour and tart enough to wash windows, an acid-etched thimble of life juice. Still, I write of seeds and sun and ancient things, there in the juice and pulp of a quick-drying moment. Perhaps this is why an alarm does what it does, makes me pucker and squint. Yeah, it is tough to pull out time to do much of anything right now, but I'm here to spend a little time with you, let you know what's going on in life. And one of those little things that I do and have done for years in a few spare moments here and there. And here we go. So I know this isn't really quite the geeky episode that I would usually do, but it's a little bit of a story, and there's a lot to it. There have been an awful lot of poetry sites that have gone the way of the dinosaur over the years. One's completely gone altogether, and a lot of them are like ghost villages on the web. I mean, you can still go there, they still function, you can still go into posts, you can comment, but in some cases, the creator and administrators have died, and there are many poets who have passed away that were writing on these sites where their poetry is still alive. There are other cases where life just got too busy, as in the case of the original creator of Poetic Constellations. And another one like Mystic Muses like that. Too many life changes, and the admin for the board had to bail and couldn't keep up with it, and it just fell apart. And everyone flew on to other corners of the web. And there are other poets that I have been writing with consistently for well over a decade, and still do. And we're still in touch, and it's an interesting little different community on the web. We come from all walks of life. There are some poets from other countries. I know poets from India, from the UK, from Australia, from well, there was a poet that was living in Taiwan, passed away unfortunately, and I've had a couple of poets that I knew for a very long time pass away in Australia. One was my longest online friend. Never met in person, but we developed a long and very welcome friendship over the years between Australia and the US. I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple other countries. I think there's a couple of poets that may be from Africa or the Caribbean. So it's a worldwide community, and it comes from all types of political viewpoints, all types of spiritual viewpoints, all kinds of levels of technological expertise, and interestingly enough, it's the poetry that we find is a consistent expression of common humanity. The common experience of the human condition is often relayed and relatable in poetry in a way that many other forms of language aren't. Think of songs. Songs are basically poetry set to music, poetry and prose. And I'm not a formal poetry kind of guy. I don't really do like a lot of formal forms. I tend to do prose like what you just heard. That's not any kind of formal form like you would expect in a university class on poetry. I just get the words and spill them out in writing, and an idea and a moment in time is kind of captured there. And what it does is it takes a little small segment of life and it kind of magnifies it for a minute and kind of makes you look in close at that kind of thing. And there are so many of these little things in life that are common to all of us, no matter where we live on the planet, that as long as we speak and read the same language, we find ourselves communicating and understanding each other in ways that do not happen in other kinds of discussions. In discussions of politics or spirituality, there are too many differences. People have too many different ideas, but when it comes to day-to-day life, we have so much in common, and poetry really brings that out. It's something we all relate to, and I treasure that communication because it reminds me all the time that really when it comes down to it on a day-to-day level, we all go through very similar things in life. And um, I don't want to sidetrack this into a political discussion. No, I'm not trying to go there. I'm just saying that it's something that maybe might be worth taking a little bit more interest in for people because it makes you stop and think for a minute. And usually when you're reading poetry, you're more tending to interpret what it's saying in terms of your own life experience. So a lot of times something that the writer maybe really didn't intend is what comes across, but in such a way that you understand you may not share the exact same experiences, but you share very similar experiences. And sometimes it comes up with some very interesting interpretations that you would have never expected as a writer. So it's what's interesting about the poetry boards and forums is the back and forth, the commentary that other writers and poets put on your posts, and you have it's just a different way of talking and thinking, and it's I think a good exercise for the mind and soul. So at any rate, I'm probably warning everyone out on the subject, and at least for now, and I am going to go back and get this thing published. Oh, one side note. I ended up having to do this recording on my Windows machine because the Linux box recording software is just acting up. I think it was just updated and it is not doing anything. So I'm using the native Windows application for my webcam to do the recording this evening, and it's got a lot better quality video, but I don't tend to use this Windows machine for recording too often because it has a little bit of a flaky hard drive, and it can on occasion crash right in the middle of doing something. At some point I'm gonna once I get a little more cash in the wallet, I'm going to get a brand new hard drive for this thing and clone it over to a new hard drive and see if that fixes the issue of the occasional unwarranted blue screen of death. Because to be honest, for video recording, the Windows software for this webcam just blows away anything I've been able to find on Linux. But the Linux box is generally more stable, and I don't have to worry about it dying in the middle of a recording. So that's why I tend to record on that machine. I'd prefer recording on this machine if the thing were stable, but one of those little things. So hopefully this thing continues until I'm ready to wrap it up, and I think that's about now. So let's just say good night and have a good week. Everyone have a wonderful, happy, and safe 4th of July, Independence Day here in the United States. And enjoy the fireworks, enjoy the show, family and friends. And I will be back with you next weekend. I am going to be doing another convention, and I'm taking the recorder with, so hopefully it'll be fun. And maybe I'll even get some YouTube video at the convention with sound this time, hopefully. I'm going to be doing a little bit of trial and error on the day before I go, just to make sure I know what's what with that. So, as always, you can find us at www.midwesterngeekandcali.com, on YouTube as Midwestern Geek and Cali, on Twitter at MidwestGeekCali, and we're on Facebook. We have a discussion group there. Welcome to join. Those of you that are watching on formats other than YouTube, if you have a Gmail login, I'd appreciate it if you're regular followers of this video cast, if you could stop by YouTube, sign in. Since it's owned by Google, you can sign in with just your Gmail and subscribe to my channel. I'd appreciate that very much if you could do that for me. If not, that's okay too, but I would really help. And from there, well, happy Vulcan fingers to you from the Agent of 42. And may there never be a rogue wave in your coffee cup, and may there be some wonderful fireworks in your near-term future. Good night.